non-relevant. Sometimes my brain be like, what? What was we talking about? Oh, yeah, bring it back, Nicole. Bring it back.
Yeah, because you would take a topic, anybody, like, I did the same thing. You would take a topic all the way so far, you'd be like, hold on, but what was the point?
Okay, coming to this point. So for those that's watching, I'm gonna get Bree in this habit, like, because I know my thoughts go left field. I bring something to write on, so if somebody asks a question or someone says something or you say something, I'd be like, oh, that's a good point. Let me challenge that, because I like challenge. Don't think we always agree with each other, because that's not the case if you paid attention to any of these shows. So,
yeah,
always come with a writing utensil and something to write on. I'm going to put that in my closing remarks for Bree. When I repost this.
Listen, y'all, I'm getting all work. My brain, I'm telling you, I'm touching people all day. I got to come down.
That didn't sound right.
Like, touching people's heads all day. I got to come down.
Okay, that didn't sound right.
Yeah, I got paper and pen. I mean,
why would she even respond to that, y'all? Why? Anybody who know me know I played 96% of the time. I think that's fair. No, that's a bit much. I'll say 88, 89%. All right, 99% of the time I play, but that 1% is mind blowing of seriousness.
Damn.
Yeah. It's mind blowing. Just telling y'all. So I started mine early because I'm lazy. I did not feel like getting back up and walking.
Now you can stretch your arm right there.
Walking all the way around to get to it. So y'all get to see me sitting here admiring my hair. It didn't look like this at first. My edges was...
She was not. You probably was resting.
You talk about a hot mess. Just a week ago, she set me under the dryer, y'all, and let my skull burn.
Oh my
She know I hate the dryer. She, like, I was in a vulnerable state. I was so tired. She set me under the dryer. Yeah. I was like, totally out of it. It's like, goodness. I didn't even know a body could be so tired. All these pages of notes. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Oh, we are right on schedule. Better to be early, which makes you on time, than to be on time, which actually makes you late. Say that again. I know y'all probably like, that makes no sense. It does, because you got to think about time to set up. Can y'all hear that? Oh, my words. So if you're on time for work, a meeting, whatever it is you're doing, you're already late, because anything can go wrong. You got to think about time if you're driving somewhere for a meeting. You got to think about time to park, time to walk, For the ladies, go to the restroom, freshen up your lipstick, your lip gloss, your makeup, your hair. So in essence, you're late if you're on time. But if you're early, you're on time. Makes sense? From the desk of Dr. Nicole Wagner.
Oh my goodness.
Sounds crazy, but it works. It works. And sometimes it just don't work. I don't care how early you are. You can't control
you can't control everything.
All right.
That's the flow.
Hi, everyone. So this is Shop Talk. Want to apologize. I know we were supposed to have done this discussion last week, but when I tell you I was out of it, I was out of it. What did I do with my water?
Set it on the side.
I'm going to get my water.
Wait till you leave to drink it.
No, because I'm going to get there. I'm going to let Bree talk to y'all. Get my water.
Hey, everyone. This is Bree coming back from a long time, a few couple weeks of not posting shop talk. But we are back now. Today we're going to talk about some things that's very important. A lot of views and, we just want to get into, some good topics today. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for coming in and listening to us. We have many other things we can listen to or go look at, but thank you for choosing us because I feel that our topics can add, to our world today. So this is Nicole, Dr. Nicole. I'm Bree once again. We are video and live from my shop. I'm just getting off work pretty much at Tangles and Locks Natural Hair Boutique out in Pikesville. So we are here and we are ready to get our conversation started today.
So today's topic is on domestic violence, and I kind of teetered the fence of whether or not to discuss it because just hearing it, let alone interacting with a discussion, can be triggering for some people. But before we get into the topic, we always try to bring you what's happening, what's upcoming, or what's already currently going on. So just a few things. Bree will be spearheading our fall segment. So you want to make sure you tune in definitely in November because she has a special treat for you all. But I'm going to give you a sneak here in. She has a new drink. She claims she hasn't made it yet, but
I have it. Not for the public.
It's a fall drink that she's going to make, and hopefully I can convince her to kind of show us live how she does that. But we have some great things in store for you for the year 2023, and we'll kind of introduce that as we close out this amazing year of Shop Talk with you all. September the 17th, the movie Penis by LSAT Production with Mr. Thomas Leahy himself. Yes, your girl, is starring in this movie. The red carpet will be hosted at Nursery Road Hoyt's Movie Theater on September the 17th. Red carpet where you can meet and greet with the cast, ask any questions, starts at 5 p.m. and the actual movie showing starts at 6 p.m. So get your tickets on Eventbrite. If you're following me, I have the link and I'll repost that as I repost out. Thank you as always. And as always, Tangles and Lock and Natural Hair Boutique. Also, Juice World Cold Press. That's a tongue twister.
Juice World.
Right here is her alkaline water, which is very, very refreshing. When we were growing up, our grandparents and parents would say, you are what you eat and you drink. And the older I get, the more I understand what they mean by that. So I was recently sick. I was like totally out of it a week ago. And this lady right here made a house call, dropped off a booster, a drink with sea moss, some detox tea, some other stuff. And as you can see, the melanin is popping. My hair looks amazing thanks to her. And I am doing much better. Still not 100%, but I'm definitely doing much better. So you want to make sure you're following Bree on Instagram as well as Facebook, and I'll post her social media handle so that you can do that. Also, October the 15th, we're going to keep domestic violence awareness, education, and prevention going. If you're following me, please continue to do so. The CEO and founder of All Curves Matter, Ms. Shakira Johnson, is putting together a discussion panel, and I am one of the panelists that will be speaking on the topic and very, very prevalent issue of domestic violence, and that's October the 15th, location to be announced at a later time and date. So without further ado, let's have a discussion about domestic violence. If you're paying attention to what's going on in the media, you know that it's been a lot of deaths as the result of domestic violence, and all of them are very, very, it's just sad. A lot of African American women are losing their life, and I don't want to exclude men, because I think oftentimes men feel left out, they feel uncared for, as if they're not important. That couldn't be further from the truth. Domestic violence, let's just be clear, it happens to both men and women. However, women are just more vocal about it, and I think that has much to do with the upbringing, whereas though men are taught that it's not manly like to cry, show emotions, share their emotions, and I think they often feel ostracized by their own gender as well as society as a whole if they say, I'm being sexually and or physically abused, as opposed to women. So please don't think that us having this discussion today is solely geared to women. If you know someone that, or you suspect someone is in an abusive situation, a domestic violence type situation, you can file two types of report. One is restricted and one is unrestricted. Here's the biggest difference between unrestricted. Unrestricted means, of course, you get all of the medical services, all of the legal services. However, an actual investigation is at that time launched. Restricted means you still get all of the support, legal services and everything, but no legal actions are taken. So again, that's two separate types of reports. So I know, and I wanted to put that out there because people don't know that you can file those two different types of reports. And a lot of times, you know, women for the most part are unsure if they want to press charges against their abuser. So again, if you are someone or you know of someone, please share with them that there are two different types of reportings that will still grant them access to resources, support, and various services. And just because you file a restricted report, you can always go at a later date and change the category of that reporting to unrestricted. That just pretty much puts it in the database. I'm a Law and Order fan, and that's the number one thing that Olivia and them are always asking. Serious. You know, they're like, well, did the victim ever report the crime? And the first thing they say is no. And of course, when you say no, I never filed it, especially if you're on trial for defending yourself, that doesn't look so good. So again, two different types of filing, restricted and unrestricted. So the whole purpose of the reporting is, again, to get it in a database and get yourself locked into a support system. Whether if you're locally, House of Ruth, but you can also go on to what's called charmcare.org. That's www.charmcare.org. You can put in your geographical location, specifically digitally put in the services you are in need of, and a whole list of services will come up, and it costs you nothing to use this. Again, I'll put that in the closing of this video. You also have the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, which is 1-800-799-7233, and I'll repeat that throughout this discussion. So, and then I'm going to give you the 4 different stages of domestic violence, and then I want Bree to chime in, and that's just going to really propel our entire discussion on this. So you have the 4 stages of domestic violence. You have the tension stage, you have the incident stage, which is where the actual violent act is occurring. Then you have the reconciliation phase. You know, that's the phase where the abuser give you gifts. They're very apologetic. Oftentimes in this phase, which you'll also see, is what they call a lot of gaslighting. And for those who are not clear on what gaslighting is, it's a manipulative tactic that an abuser uses to maintain or secure power and control over another person, where they coerce you through an act, an art. I call it an art because you got to be skilled to do this, to confuse the victim into believing he or she brought the abuse on themselves.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then the last phase, which is in essence the first phase, is the calm, which I call the honeymoon period. So, you know, you had, and that's the cycle of it. So you have the tension, that's the build up, where the anger, it can be triggered by stress. Maybe you got suspended, fired, some type of stress at work, or something's going on with another person. If there's any type of cheating, infidelity, maybe that person has now rejected you and you go home and you take it out on your partner. Then you have the actual incident where now they're actually triggered by you, and you're actually experiencing the physical, emotional, financial, and or psychological or sexual abuse. Because understand, domestic violence and abuse is not just a physical act. All of them takes a physiological effect on you, but it's different forms. Then you have the reconciliation, the apologetic phase, you know, the love bombing phase all over again, which in essence leads to the honeymoon. And the honeymoon phase is number one when you think about it. I know you have tension up the top and honeymoon down the bottom in the cycle.
But it's like a cycle. It goes
but the honeymoon is actually the first stage, because everything seems so beautiful. Now you're making up reasons to your friends, your job, your doctors, even within yourself. And most women, they blame themselves. Well, maybe if I had did the dishes right. Sleeping with the Enemy was a very, very good movie, you know, that spoke to this. She spent many years blaming herself, and he would give her expensive gifts. And you're thinking, okay, he had a bad day. But what we don't realize is that cycle doesn't stop until somebody decides to get help or call for help. And it only gets worse. Each time you go through the cycle, it increases. Okay. So those are your 4 stages of domestic violence. And again, this discussion is motivated by bringing awareness, education, as well as prevention, and offering some resources to the viewers.
Man, domestic violence, man, that's just, it is, like you said, it's not physical. I mean, yes, it's physical, but really it doesn't just affect the physical, it's mental, because you are really just manipulating a person to the point where you can control them. You know?
Oh, yeah.
How does it get to that point? You know, like you said, it's different phases. The calm phase, that's pretty much the first phase. Cause I you know, sitting here listening, you know, I think back on relationships, and I've been through stuff like that before. Like gaslighting at some point becomes normal in some relationships, because you at some point you just allow it to you know, and it's like, that's not a situation where you can just leave sometimes, because sometimes it gets very violent. A person can really try to take your life, or, you know. Yeah.
And apparently we saw that with the one young lady about 2 weeks ago. It aired in the news. Mother of 6. All 6 kids are now left without a mother or a father. And this young lady actually followed, you know, the steps with utilizing the judicial system. So clearly she had filed an unrestricted report, and she had a protective order against him, but nonetheless, in broad daylight outside of a grocery store, he gets in the van, because it's shown on camera. He repeatedly stabs her, and his rage was so high that when they showed up, the knife was still in her skull. Now, and I used to work in the morgue at University Hospital doing autopsies, and to cut the skull of a human being's head, we had to use, it's at least about 3 to 4 inches of
'Cause y'all use a saw, right?
It is a small saw to actually cut. So for that knife to be embedded in this woman's skull, that's a lot of hostile build up and probably suppressed rage mixed in with already pre-existing mental health. And the sad part is that sometimes men and women don't even realize they're in an abusive relationship.
That's why I say it's like, where do it start? You know, not asking, you know, just pretty much saying like it can start and you don't even realize it because it's calm, it's quite, you know, subtle stuff that, you know.
So I'm kind of jumping over the notes. So I kind of put questionnaires out there as I was posting leading up to today. And so I decided to pull 6 questions that really jumped out to me. So the first question was, why do people stay in abusive, quote, toxic relationships? To the question, that was funny that you said it because I got this question so much in my inbox. And here's the thing, there's a movie called Made on Netflix. Check it out. They feel as though, as crazy as it sounds to someone that don't understand the cycle of domestic violence, they stay because they really believe it is safer. And if you have children or you have vulnerable family members that are probably living with you and or that you're caring for, to leave really an abuser, it increases their rage because they're already suffering from low self-esteem, alienation by people. They're seeking validation, and somehow in oppressing you through their acts of violence, you feed that need as far as their self-actualization within their mind. It's distorted, but in their mind, it makes sense.
Yeah, it did.
So if you take that necessity, because your presence in their life and their dominance of you is a necessity that keeps them going, you have just cut their lifeline, and that sends them in rage. So a lot of times, women, and I can tell you as a survivor myself of domestic violence, I literally stayed out of fear. I feared the what if could possibly happen if I left and then I had a child. So it's different strokes, and some people don't know how to leave. If you're an only child or you don't have any connection with your family, you're definitely at the high vulnerability list. They prey on people that are isolated and people that they feel don't have anyone. So you stay because that's your only family that you know.
That, I mean, in a female point of view, like if with a male, so a lot of times they do it to people that don't have men in their family like that. They think that, like I said, because like I said, I was in that type of situation, and it's like it is. You don't. I mean, yeah, you know it's wrong to be in that situation, but it's like you say, you have a child, you feel that, but then when you sit down and really ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Am I worth better? Do I see better for myself? Yeah, I had to leave the situation. I mean, when I was saying I'm done, I mean, they was banging around talking about it. I was nervous, but I had to hold my outside structure and say, no, I'm not. No, I'm done. You have to really have courage. It takes courage.
It definitely
takes. And that lasted for a long time.
And because again, it's a cycle, and there's also a hoovering period, whereas though it will appear that they have backed off, especially if you involve the authorities. It will, but sometimes even involving authorities don't really put any fear in them, but it will appear that your abuser has backed off when in essence social media has become the playground. I just had a conversation yesterday evening with someone, and as it pertains to this right here, what I'm about to say, social media has become the playground for stalking, bullying, and harassing.
That's what it is. That's
people.
Crazy.
And they will use social media
Yes,
to
they
set
will.
up a lot of fake pages.
Stalking.
And the crazier part is that people, because they appear to be so nice when they're around other people think you are the problem.
Yes.
So people will literally go along with their request to stalk and harass you and report back to them what they see you doing, what you say to them or whatever. So you even have to be careful with you getting out of an abusive situation, especially if it has been ongoing for a number of years. Not even thinking about, because a month can seem like forever in an abusive situation, but it has a vicious, sometimes deadly outcome.
And a lot of situations, though, Nicole, a lot of domestic situations don't even get to that point of putting their hands on you.
Right.
They can play mind games with you, like to the point where you will hurt someone. You know, literally, you will hurt someone. Like some people get off on seeing someone enraged over them. It's like control,
and they record you. So I hate that people do that, because you see a lot of the videos floating around, and on TikTok and other platforms, it gets a lot of laughs. But I'm like, do you realize that there's nothing funny about this? And there's been times that I've seen things floating around on TikTok, and people are putting a laughing emoji underneath of it, and then a couple of days later or a week or so later, it's in the news that this person was killed. Like the gentleman who killed his girlfriend and their kids went live after he did it. And that, that just segues into that whole mental health piece and healing that we jump-started Shop Talk talking about. And that was one of the questions that somebody inboxed me repeatedly. What causes the cycle and the act of abuse and domestic violence? And you have a couple of things. It can be historical, meaning it probably what is embedded throughout the family tree.
Trauma. Because they say generational curses, but it's just a trauma. I don't think of it as a curse. It creates bad scenarios, but it's traumas, because we have to realize something. Number one, being as though we're here today in 2022, we still come from ancestors that were back in slavery, that was back, getting raped, getting beat up, and manipulated. So those things, when you have children, it carries on those traumas in our mind, even though it play out in our lives in different ways, but it's still the same trauma is behind it. So it's traumas.
And that was concerning and it was a guy that sent me that question. That I got let me just say for the viewers, a lot of my Chad, taught behavior. We are products of our environment. For those of you who are viewing and will probably replay this, if you're not following Chad Blunt, CHAD, last name BLOUNT, you should follow him, because he does a lot of posting, and I kind of feel like a lot of his social media ministering is to the fellas, if they would just let their guard down.
Right.
Make sure you are following this gentleman, because you talk about food for the soul. His sharing his thoughts, his affirmations, and his wisdom is definitely, food for the thoughts. So yes, it's taught behavior. And I know you said you don't like to say curses. I definitely say curses, and oftentimes we don't even know we are product of generational curses. And for me, I didn't realize it. I had heard the at that time cliche term thrown around as it pertains to me, evaluating my relationships and the type of men I was selecting. And I just found that, I was never happy. And then when I went back and got real with myself. At first, whenever you hear me say go back, that means I put myself in therapy. And I have 2 therapists, as a matter of fact. I pay for that health insurance, and I tend to blow that health insurance. I wears it out for my mental health awareness. Culturally, people of color think that that's something that our race shouldn't do. No. Get you a therapist, and you will discover a person that has been internally fighting to set themselves free. But I learned my relationship style off of watching my parents. That's just the truth be told. And then as I got older, no longer around my parents because I was removed from the home and grew up, in foster care, I then started learning my relationship preference and behaviors from the relationships I saw before me, and it's the beautiful thing about social media. Social media allows everybody to be who and what he or she want to be. Right. If they want to paint this picture of a beautiful relationship, then they do that. And we're the viewers, watchers, as ourselves from the sideline, some of us find ourselves devastated when we find out something like domestic violence or what have you took place, because we become so invested into that buy-in, and it gives us hope to see somebody. But you don't know the demons that lies behind that screen and what they're dealing with. And another gentleman, he had asked me about the gaslighting, which I already explained what that was. But then he also, here's another healing question we've covered. Is it trauma bonding?
Sure.
I'm going to let you respond to that.
Yeah, it is. Because it's like, trauma is all right. I was watching this the documentary a couple weeks ago. It was just talking about our people and where we have came from and what we went through. And a lot of stuff that go on in our race was already pre-planned for us to be this way. Some things just was pre-planned, pretty much. So it's a lot of trauma. Our ancestors, meaning our great-great-grandmother, our great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was back then in those times where they were in that arena where they were being trained to think, trained to see things in a light where they not happy, but they have to, or it'll be their life. Right. So it's like you have to. That's fear. So that's putting fear in a person's bloodline. That's putting fear in yourselves, because even love, you can feel that. That when you start loving yourself, your body responds different.
Absolutely.
When you function from fear and you don't love yourself, or you fear to let love in, your cells, it picks that up. So you will start creating the same scenarios over and over and over, because we are we creative beings. We manifest things. I mean, it's just it's becoming a normal to talk about it now, but this is something that's been going on. That never stopped. It just was taken out of the public record for us to understand that aspect. So I say trauma, yes, because some of my traumas, my children picked up, and I'm just grateful that at this point in their lives that they are young, but they recognize them. And I've recognized some of the traumas in them that were in me, so I'm trying to assist them in overcoming, and they assisting themselves in overcoming, and I have to do the same. So, if you, just like you said, when you see things which you're exposed to, that's traumas. You exposed to other people's traumas.
Right. So for any of the viewers that are just tuning in, or if you're watching this replay, subjecting yourself to ongoing domestic violence, and I want to say ongoing, because initially, unless you're aware of some warning signs, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those warning signs, and I hope our younger people, especially our young ladies, tune in, because y'all fall victim to a lot of these warning telltale signs, all because you want to one up, or what's the new saying they say? You want to get the bag. You're chasing the bag. You're chasing a bag with this dude, but not even realizing you are in that very decision and act putting yourself in potentially a dangerous situation. But you can have two people, one come from a broken home where there probably was alcoholism or substance, some drug abuse. Another person came from a very volatile, household. And because they both experienced some level of trauma, and a lot of trauma have identical adverse effects, with it. And they bond off of that. And that's what we do. Like you said, as human